because this chocolate milkshake is just chilling me out, man. Like, I was so stressed out, and I was starting to see the entire universe and my entire life through this really, like, sour, bleak, hopeless lens of just, like, straining and worrying and tightening lids. But then chocolate milkshake is helping me turn things around.
Welcome to How to Trust Yourself, the podcast for anyone who's done with the endless second guessing and ready to tune in to your inner guidance. I'm Anna Holtzman, and I get that feeling of trudging through life like you're wading through mud, trying to figure out which way to go. In my 20s, I spent more time asking what should I do with my life than writing about crushes or bad dates in my journal. I've tried on a lot of answers: architecture, publishing, editing reality TV for a decade, and finally landing on therapy and coaching, helping people like you connect with your purpose. But here's the thing I've learned through all those twists and turns. Trusting yourself is the key to moving forward, even when the path feels messy. So if you're ready to stop doubting yourself and start listening to your gut, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome back, dear listeners. I'm getting over a cold, so you might hear some nasaliness in my voice. And that's just what we're going to go with today. It's so nice to be back here with you. And today I'm going to tell a recent story about tightening lids and milkshakes, which will all make sense very soon, I promise you. But why are we talking about tightening lids and milkshakes? Well, this is really an analogy, and this story is actually about leadership and how you show up while navigating stress, and how we can shift the way that we show up and lead even while we're navigating stress, because stress is an inevitable part of life. It just is. I wish that it wasn't. You may wish that it wasn't, but I think we all acknowledge that it's there. It's going to come up. It's going to continue to come up. And that is exactly what happened for my husband and I the weekend before I'm recording this, which is only days ago. Very hard to believe. So I'm recording this on Tuesday, January 27th, 2026. And this past weekend, we had an epic snowstorm in New York City. And it was very, very cold here. And we've had these kind of storms in New York City before, but this was the biggest one in the last 5 years, I believe they're saying. And we simply were not prepared for it. But we were especially not prepared for a really unfortunate thing that happened in our tiny little corner of the world, um, amidst all the other bigger, much more horrific things that are happening out there in the world, but something that happened right inside of our personal little world is that so we live in Queens in a neighborhood called Jackson Heights. And we also have a place out by the beach, also in Queens, in a neighborhood called Rockaway, about 50 minutes away on a non-snowy day. And we have tenants there as well. And on, what was it, Sunday morning, the whole thing feels like a blur, but on Sunday morning, we got a really terrifying FaceTime call from our wonderful tenants. These are people we just adore, and we've become really close with them. They're a couple, and they have a young toddler daughter. And we got a FaceTime call from them, and it was just like chaos and screaming and water pouring out of the ceiling. So, long story short, what had happened was that due to the icy cold temperatures and also some not so sound areas of the construction of this house, a sprinkler pipe upstairs from them burst, and in our place upstairs from them, and the whole entire, place got flooded in various ways with water, but especially where they're living downstairs got just totally flooded. They were ankles deep in it. It was coming out of the ceiling everywhere. And I mean, it was just h horrible. They have this young child, they have 2 cats, and they're, 2 human beings themselves. So, as you can imagine, we all flew into emergency mode, and I immediately started making phone calls and coordinating things. We very quickly were able to get them into a temporary rental right nearby. Thankfully, they are safe and sound, although extremely exhausted. And my husband immediately jumped out of bed and threw his clothes on and got in the car to drive out there, which was absolutely necessary and also very worrisome because this that day was the day of the blizzard, the snowstorm, and so he was driving in very, um, not great conditions, and I was worried about him, and, it was just one of those things that was not fun for anyone involved, and he was out there till the wee hours, you know, getting things done and helping the tenants, etcetera. I, on the other hand, stayed put because we had, my stepdaughter was with us, so I stayed with her and our cats and kept everything running at home. Spent most of the day, shoveling because the snow was very deep and we had to shovel, get ourselves unstuck, and, my body is not used to that level of physical labor. My back was killing me. I mean, it was just a big old mess of a day. And by the time dinner time came and it was time for me to get something prepared for my stepdaughter and I to eat dinner, as you can imagine, I felt like a total wreck. My nerves were thoroughly shot. My back was shot. I was, my nerves were just so on edge because I was so worried about um, the tenants. I was worried about their kid. I was very worried about my husband, and just I had been on this like high alert mode and all day and still was, and my body was exhausted. And nevertheless, it was time for me to show up and lead in the sense of being a parent and making sure that my stepdaughter had dinner and hopefully had like a sane and safe, relatively safe experience of having dinner with me, while her dad was out there and she, I'm sure, was worried about him too. Um, but in stepping into leadership, I was coming from a place of feeling very frazzled. And so I went into her room and I said, I just, I kind of collapsed a little bit and I was like, I've had just a really stressful day. I'm feeling really strung out. I can't even fathom cooking anything right now. There's a 24-hour diner that's right across the street from where we live, which is very convenient, and by some miracle, they managed to stay open during the snowstorm, and I said, "Can you please come with me across the street to the diner, and let's just have dinner there? Like, I need some sanity. I need to be taken care of by someone else for a short space of time." And my stepdaughter, my wonderful, lovely stepdaughter, looked up and I could see that she really did not want to go out there into the cold. She had been inside all day and I who could blame her? I mean, it was very just icy, sleeting conditions outside. Why would anyone want to go out there? And I started to feel myself get impatient, which is really not the usual for me with my stepdaughter. I mean, I have the kind of I feel in some ways complicated role, but in other ways much easier role of being the step parent where it's not really my job to discipline or, make sure that things are on track. I feel like I sort of get to be more like the fun aunt who happens to be around all the time. Um, but I could feel myself getting into, like, a resentful feeling place, like, "You've been you've been, home in the warmth all day, and I've been out there, blah, blah, blah." And I could feel myself starting to, like, get into, like, a forcing or a pushing energy and almost like a, roll my eyes and throw a fit energy, and I said something like, like, "I've been working really hard all day, and I can't take it anymore," and whatever, and she was like, all right, sure, of course." I mean, she is a very caring kid, and I knew she cared about my state of being as well. But after I closed her door to go, get ready to go out, I thought, "What am I doing? Why does she need to go out in the cold and be miserable when she's clearly, like, feeling much safer to stay indoors, and I don't really need to be, like, schlepping her around." And then this idea dawned on me that somehow felt like a miracle, and it's gonna sound really simple because it was, and I just thought, "You know what? I'm gonna go to the diner." I've already been outside and my coat and boots are all wet anyway. Um, I'll go to the diner, I'll get takeout for us, and along with a healthy takeout dinner, I'm gonna get myself a chocolate milkshake, and I am gonna drink a chocolate milkshake with dinner, and as soon as I had that idea, it was like my energy shifted. Not 100%, I mean, there was too much going on for it to shift that much, but something just softened and my shoulders dropped a little, and I was like, "This is the right way to go." So, I knocked on her door again, and I was like, "What if I just get takeout for us?" And you could just see the pure relief on her face, and I felt lighter. We both felt lighter, I think, and so that's what I did. I went to the diner. It was really nice to just sit in there for a few moments while waiting for the food. We got our dinners. I got my big chocolate milkshake, and I brought it all home, and just with that little silly seeming shift, we were able to have or I was able to have this really nice time with my stepdaughter just sitting and having dinner together, and instead of it feeling like, I was white-knuckling my way through it, trying to keep myself together or feeling like there was tension because I knew, I was, like, kind of offloading stuff on her even without meaning to. Instead of that, it felt light. We were joking around, we were laughing, even though we were both a little bit worried about my husband, her father, who was still out there into the wee hours and we knew he'd have to drive home really late and it was still snowing. Even with all that going on, we managed to have, like, this really special experience together, and it's actually not that often that the 2 of us get to spend one-on-one time with each other, and we really enjoyed it. And I told her this story over dinner about my childhood, but it started off and here I'll finally explain the tightening lids thing.
A quick pause here because I want to invite you into something that I think could shift the way you feel about showing up. If you're a sensitive creative or entrepreneur, and the idea of being really seen and heard brings up fear, resistance, or that, oh no, not me feeling, you are in good company. My free visibility workshop, Let Yourself Be Seen, is all about making visibility feel safe to your nervous system and true to you. We'll explore how to work with fear as a doorway into more authentic self expression so you can share the work that matters most to you without pushing, pretending, or burning out. You can save your spot or catch the replay at annaholtzman.com/be seen. Okay, let's get back to the conversation.
So, we have this inside joke in our family, and it's my husband is the one that came up with it. We had been talking some time about, like, what is a healthy relationship? What makes a relationship healthy? And my husband and I both agreed that a sense of humor is really important to a healthy relationship, being able to laugh about things, being able to see the lighter side of things together. And had said that in the past, he had had certain relationships where it was all about tightening lids. And we're like, "What do you mean tightening lids? Like you had jars of pickles and you were tightening the lids on it?" He likes to use metaphor, I think we all do, and in my family, and he was like, "No, it's like it was all about tightening lids," and what he meant was it was all about the serious stuff. It was all about, the problem solving and paying taxes and, furrowing your brow and concentrating hard, and it was all about tightening lids, which totally made sense once he explained it, because I could just imagine when you're like, "Arr," squeezing and trying to tighten that lid and your brow furrows and you get, like, really serious and intense. So, that became our family inside joke. Like, whenever things are getting too serious, we say, "Okay, we're too much tightening lids. We need to lighten the mood here." And I said to my stepdaughter, "You know what? I think I've just come up with the other half of tightening lids, the antidote to tightening lids, and it's chocolate milkshake." Because this chocolate milkshake is just chilling me out, man. Like, I was so stressed out, and I was starting to see the entire universe and my entire life through this really, like, sour, bleak, hopeless lens of just, like, straining and worrying and tightening lids. But then chocolate milkshake is helping me turn things around. So we were laughing about it, and I was telling her, a little snippet of my childhood and how when I was growing up, um, my dad was kind of the expert on tightening lids in our home, which has its place. There are lids that do need to be tightened, and if nobody was in charge of tightening lids, everything would unravel. We wouldn't get our taxes paid, we wouldn't, like, be organized about anything, and life wouldn't function so smoothly, so tightening lids has its place. Um I don't mean to put a negative spin onto, what my the role my dad played in our family, and to be fair, he wasn't only about tightening lids, but that was sort of his area of expertise. Whereas my mom was kind of the queen of chocolate milkshake, I would say. So, my dad, his work would take him away for sometimes months at a time. He'd be working on the other side of the country or sometimes up in Canada, and it would just be me and my mom for long stretches of time, and you could just feel the shift in, like, the daily routine because when my dad was around, he wanted us to eat healthy meals together and eat them on schedule and eat them at the table and watch PBS and listen to jazz music. That was kinda his vibe. But as soon as he was out of the house, my mom and I were eating ice cream out of the carton in bed while watching, Dallas and Falcon Crest, the soap operas or dramas of that era in the '80s. And that was a hell of a lot of fun. Um, so that was my little story that I shared with my stepdaughter about tightening lids and chocolate milkshake, and we had a good laugh about that, and then we piled into the bed and watched a rom-com together and extended the chocolate milkshake good times. And so by the time my husband finally did make it home after a really arduous, stressful day for him and a very long, slow, drive through the snow, he was so grateful and comforted to know that his daughter and I were not only safe and sound indoors in the warmth out of the cold, but that we had had a nice time together and that his daughter had had a nice, enjoyable, yummy, pleasant evening, and that she, had felt safe with me taking care of her while he was away. And the kind of lesson I came away from this with is that even when things are extremely stressful, and life gets extremely stressful sometimes, that is just inevitable. Even when things are really stressful and there genuinely are lots of lids to be tightened, and actually, especially during those times when there are so many lids to be tightened, so many serious and important things to do that your nervous system can get really tied up into knots and feel very fried. It's especially important during those times to bring in some chocolate milkshake to shift the energy a little. It doesn't have to be a literal chocolate milkshake like it was for me. I'm using that as a metaphor to mean just whatever helps you shift your energy back into that part of you that remembers that as stressful as life can also be fun. It can also be about laughing together. It can also be about enjoying each other's presence and connection. It can be about just glancing at each other and remembering a fun experience that you've had and just bringing some of that energy into the room. And that just simply doing that shifts your energy and shifts then the way that you show up when you are stepping into leadership and visibility, whether that is in a private context, like in your home, showing up as a parent or as a partner or a family member or a friend, or whether it is showing up as a business owner, as an artist, as a practitioner who is leading and holding space for other people. It shifts the way you show up and lead when you can remember and bring in a little bit of chocolate milkshake energy, whatever your version of that is. So, before I conclude this story, I have a little invitation to you, which is just a really super simple and hopefully fun little exercise. And this is all it is. First, think of a time, maybe recently, when you were tightening lids, so to speak. Maybe you were doing some chores that you didn't really want to do, but that had to be done. Maybe you were doing some problem solving that was stressful but necessary. Think of a time when you were quote unquote tightening lids and just notice, like, how does that energy show up in your body? Do you feel your shoulders tighten? Do you feel your brow furrow? Do you feel your head just getting like very, very tunnel visioned and your vision get very intense and serious and focused? Just notice how tightening lids shows up in your body. Notice that. And now we're going to shift gears. And now I want you to think of a time when you felt like you were in your version of chocolate milkshake energy. What is your chocolate milkshake? What is your version of that? What is it that brings you into feelings of lightness, of playfulness, of laughter, of just letting it go and shaking it off a little bit, just let yourself light upon a memory of a time when you felt playful and amused and you were joking around and you felt light. Think of that memory and notice how that shows up in your body and what kind of references or tastes or smells or sounds or movements with your body, what kind of thing pulls you into that energy, invites you into that energy. And once you've identified that, I invite you to just find some way of remembering what your tightening lids is and what your chocolate milkshake is, how these two things show up in your body, and what is the symbol or activity or memory that helps shift you a little bit back into your version of chocolate milkshake energy. And maybe make a note of that in some way. And as you go through your daily life, as you go about your to-dos and activities, just notice when your body is tightening up into that lid tightening energy, and take a beat, take a breath, and take a moment to invite in some of your version of chocolate milkshake energy and see what happens. See how that shifts the way you step into the next moment, the way you show up in leadership and visibility, and the way you move through the rest of your day. I would love to hear what this story and this invitation brought up for you. And my next invitation is to share it with me. I seriously would love to hear what this brought up for you. So write me an email, anna@annaholtzman.com, and let me know. I love to read the stuff that you send me. Such a pleasure to be here with you. I'm sending so much love and encouragement. And however you're showing up right now, know that you are not alone. We're all just doing the best we can, making it through moment by moment. And I'm sending you a virtual chocolate milkshake or happy thing of your own flavor and choosing. I'll see you next time. Take care.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor. Hit that follow button so you don't miss a thing and leave a rating or review. It helps more people find this show, and honestly, it makes my day. And if you're looking for more ways to trust yourself and start listening to that gut instinct of yours, come hang out with me on Instagram at Anna_Holtzman. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, trust yourself. You've got this.